Let's move into the issue a little more deeply. I will give 30 seconds on this question. Virginia has been a leader in using public-private partnerships to fund transportation projects. The I-495, I-95 hot lanes, the Portsmouth Tunnel, and the new U.S. Route 460, which runs from Petersburg to Norfolk, are three that come to mind, although there are many others right here in Northern Virginia. My question is, many of those projects that were started by Governor McDonald, specifically the US 460 construction, where we haven't dropped a bit of pavement yet, and the Portsmouth Tunnel, are currently under review by Governor McAuliffe. Do you think the state's current public-private partnership law has worked well, and what changes do you think it needs? 1 minute.
Thank you for the question. Thank you for the question. I have not studied the current law, but I would say in general, I tend to support public-private partnerships. But the part that we need to keep in mind in terms of this question or this kind of decision is what the responsibilities of government are. And for the most part, I believe transportation infrastructure is the responsibility of government. And so when we incorporate a public-private partnership, we relinquish some of the control, some of the values that government has, some of the oversight of the legislature, and in addition, so it distracts our dollars, because there also is a profit motive incorporated into transportation infrastructure. And so for that reason, I think that we need to be cautious and skeptical of rushing toward these kinds of arrangements.
Well, I work in a nonprofit, so I'm very used to the struggles that you have when you're trying to maintain a nonprofit, and the importance of reaching out to the corporate community to support your activities, and reaching out to the government as well for support through grants and such. So this is a struggle that you see in many areas, especially in this age of reduced budgets at the state level, at the federal level, that you're just forced almost to have to work more. And I do think that public-private partnerships offer a lot of potential for us to be able to get projects done that would not be able to get done in the age of such strict budgets and budget cutting. I do agree that you have to be clear on what are the responsibilities of the government and what are the responsibilities of the private sector, and you have to strike that right balance, and it's not always easy. And so my sense is that we need to continue public-private partnerships, but with some careful thinking.
So I very much view transportation as a core government function that goes along right with open space and parks and medical services such as Medicaid. Transportation really is one of those core functions that everyone uses across the Commonwealth. I don't see public-private partnerships as the answer. I don't have a full grasp on what the legislation says, but certainly it's an issue that I would study, I would look at, I'd talk to other folks who are in the legislature, have conversations with them, have conversations but with the folks who are affected by the current projects, and do my research and form my opinion based on that research.
Certainly as someone who grew up in Southern Virginia, where people kind of look at you cross-eyed when I tell them I now take the metro and the bus to work, because that's just a foreign concept. I certainly understand that that challenge in Richmond will be to make sure that we're getting the funding we need to improve the system that we have. I think public-private partnerships have always been a creative way to do it. If I had any criticism of it, it might be that they can move faster in expanding our roads and not pick rush hour to sometimes do fixes. But you know, it is something that you know, we could do better. You know, yeah, we just could do better at it pretty much. So.
Well, I think we all know that transportation is a core issue, as we heard from the previous question. It's also an economic issue, and it's one of the major drivers that can either advance or slow our innovation economy. If people don't want to come to Arlington or through Arlington or anywhere through the Commonwealth, then they'll go around it. But let me talk about a little bit about the public-private partnership question. I work for a public-private partnership. The College of William & Mary, when I was a student there, took over 30% of its revenue and its operating budget from the Commonwealth. Now it's down to 11%. Private donations have made up that difference. That is a good example of a public-private partnership. But I have serious reservations, because who is representing the interests of the people in each of these examples? Maybe it's okay in transportation, but what about prisons? What about schools? At some level you have to be asking, is this a profit motive or a service or a community motive? And once you see that because of a corporate bottom line, you have to understand the realities of that. So, yes and no.
You know, public-private partnerships tend to have been in the news, as you mentioned, George, because of some big transportation projects, but you do have to remember that there are lots of other opportunities for very positive public-private partnerships. I was involved in some having to do with housing and affordable housing. It is an important part of the future, I think, in these budget times, and I don't see public-private partnerships as a panacea. They're not the solution, but they are surely part of the solution. And we ought not walk away from it. The fact that there are some that have been under some scrutiny simply means we need to make sure we do it right every time. So I guess the answer to the question is, I do support the concept of public-private partnerships in transportation and across the board as we use our imaginations in housing and other areas to do them. But we simply got to get them right.